Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Welcome to all the guests. Shalom Aleichem. Zok the Heilige Gemara. Today we're going to discuss how you salt the meat. And interesting, we have two classic sugyas, smack in middle. Classic, I mean that if you learn enough Daf Yomi, you should know these sugyas kind of by heart. I'll give you an example of one of them. The Gemara says, oh, you can't learn out of this. Why? Because it's two psukim. Shnei ksuvim ma'ba'im ke'echad, shnei ksuvim ma'ba'im ke'echad, ei melamdim. So what's the next question? Hanicha. But if you hold melamdim, what do? It's always the same. Okay. Zok the Gemara, Omar Rav Nachman, Daf Kuf Yud Beis, Omid Beis. 4 lines from the top or 6 lines from the bottom. Any way you want to look at it. Omar Rav Nachman, Dagim va'oifei shemolchan zeh zeh asurim. If you take fish and you take chicken and you do melicha, they are asur. What's they are asur? Interesting. They is referring only to the fish, not so much to the chicken. Chicken is not asur. But here's the issue. Fish, halachically, you could eat the blood, midiraisa. Chicken not. But if you salt them together, we're concerned that the blood of the chicken will go into the fish, and that's awesome. Hey chidomi, but what's the case? As we're going to see soon, in order to do melicha, you have to use a vessel that has holes on the bottom. Afilu oifos va'oifos nami asiri. So if you don't have holes on the bottom, then the blood goes out of one, goes into the other one. And yes, this one is pilot, it's rejecting the blood, it's expelling the blood, but the other one is gonna inhale it, it's gonna take it in. So it should be awesome. But if it has holes in the bottom, so what's the problem? As the blood comes out of the bird, it drips right out of the kli and it doesn't have a chance to go into the fish. Says the Gemara, yes, it's talking about the right kli, it has holes in it. The fish have a very thin membrane, kadmiu palti, so they're very easy for the blood to come out, and therefore very easy it expels everything, and therefore it's able to absorb the blood of the fish. But the birds are tougher. After the fish is done expelling whatever it needs to expel, we're going to see soon. It has to be done expelling everything. Pleat the oifos. Then the birds start expelling. So therefore, there's a difference in timing. And therefore, the fish has a chance to absorb the blood coming out of the chicken. So, the very important taisis here that all the Rishonim discuss, which we have to use a few times to understand. So he says like this, Umiu adayin shloimar tamacher. Says Taisvus, it's in the giant Taisvus. If you want, you can look inside, but it's kind of hard to find. Tamacher, the kolzman, it's highlighted here where it is in the actual Taisvus. So if you want to see it in the Taisvus, you look over there where the box is. The kolzman shabbasur tarid lifleit seer. Listen to what Taisvus says. There's 2 things going on here. The chicken expels the blood, but then it also expels the moyal, the watery substance in the chicken. As long as it's expelling something, then it doesn't have the opportunity to absorb anything. And that expelling of moyal takes a very long time. Some Rishonim say like 18 hours, 20 hours. But here's the question, and this kind of explains why you're allowed to do melicha with a few pieces of meat together. Let's say one expels, it takes an hour to expel the blood. So how do you put another piece of meat in there? The other one, you put in 3 minutes later, and he's a minute, 63 minutes later, he's expelling blood, and the other one is going to start taking it in. The answer is, because yes, piece number 1 expelled all the blood, but it's continuing to expel waters. And as long as it's expelling something else, it doesn't have the opportunity to absorb the blood. He says, the time it takes to expel the water, it takes a long time for the waters to be done. Okay, fine, that's that. So when we know that Yisod, that could answer some of the other stuff. Rav Mari bar Rachel, again, this throughout Shas. Who's Rav Mari bar Rachel? Who's his father-in-law? Or who's his grandfather, should say? Shmuel. Why is his name, only person that is named after his mother? Rav Mari bar Rachel. Because his father's name was Isagiyira. His father captured his mother as a guy, and his mother got pregnant with him when his father was still a guy. Later on, this guy decided to do tshuva or whatever, became a ger, and married his mother, and his father-in-law was Shmuel, the famous Shmuel. So we don't want to name him. He became a very chashuv person, grandson of Shmuel. His father is Hirasa Shaloi B'Kedusha, V'Leidasa B'Kedusha. When he was born, his father's already a ger. But we don't want to talk about it. We don't say, oh, Mari, Rav Mari, Bar Isur Giyoira. So, Im Lachlei B'Sar Shchuta B'Adi B'Sar Treifel. He once had a story where in the same bowl he had shechted meat, kosher meat, and treif meat. Also, look, Hamed Rava, he went to ask the question to Rava. What was the question? What's the shaila? If you have two pieces of meat that are both kosher and they both expel blood, is there a problem? No. Why not?
They don't absorb from each other.
They don't absorb from each other. Why? Oh, because I just said taisvus. They don't absorb from each other. They're both busy expelling stuff. Now, one might be expelling water, the other expelling blood, but they don't absorb. So what's the shaila over here? The shaila over here is maybe it'll absorb the water. The water from the treif will go into the kosher one and make it treif. And maybe water, it does absorb. Blood is thicker than water. So that's the question. Maybe the water is going to be absorbed by the meat. He says, yes, it's a problem. It's a massive problem, says Rava. Check this out. We have the Shmona Shratzim, the new ones, the new and improved, beautiful stuff. Says the Gemara, it says the word hatmeim, Ela hatmeim by Shratzim, the hay. What do we learn from hay? Lesser tziron viratvon v'kibushlam. We see that by a sheretz, the water, the mayal, the juice of a sheretz, of this guy right over here is aser. How do I know? I need you think maybe just a piece of meat is aser. How do I know the juice? This is hatmeim, lesser tziron viratvon v'kibushlam, all the small parts. The roitiv is more of the gravy, I guess, the kippah, the little pieces. Akopanim, you see that by nevela also, by a treifa, the juices are going to be treif. You got to be concerned by that. Stavkuf Yud Gimel and Beis, which they Amud Aleph, they discuss, and it should bother everybody. The Rishonim talk about it. It doesn't address the question. The question was more, we know, okay, so you tell me the juice is awesome, but the question was, does it absorb the juice? That we didn't really address. We said, okay, the juice of sheretz is aser. And it might be a big chiddush for us, because maybe if I would have asked the Olam, is the juice of a treifa aser? It has enough power in it to treif up another piece of meat? And the answer is yes. But how do you see from here that it absorbs it? Okay. But perhaps, why did the Gemara jump to the shratzim? There's another concern there. Shmuel. What are we doing? We're talking about melicha. We're talking about salting an animal. I'm going to show you the whole process in a second. Here, a new and improved version. I just asked Yoshi to add some stuff to it, to give it a little bit of a visual. If you put salt on something or let meat, it's as if it's cooking. It's as if they're both as if they're cooking. There's smoke coming out of it. Not literally. Halachically, there's no smoke that comes out of meat when you put salt on it. But it's as if it's reiteach, as if it's boiling. In other words, it has the same characteristics as a boiling piece of meat that would absorb other things, whatever la halacha we needed to. So he says, you're salting this piece of meat. So it's boiling hot. Boiling hot, it's going to absorb the mayal, the gluma of whatever, the juice. So So the Gemara, even the Shmuel Avamino, Hanamil Daman. That's okay. Shmuel would say that when you put salt on it, it could absorb blood. Maybe it doesn't make it aser when they absorb the juices. Kamashmalon, those are also aser. Meisvei. Dag tar shemalcha im dag tamei. You take two fish and you salt them. L'chayre, you're salting both of them. It doesn't say anything about one or the other. It says shemalchu, shemalchai im dag tamei. You salted two fish. One is tamei, one is tar. You take a tuna with what's a fish that's not? No, swordfish they say might be tar. I said sword. Catfish. You take catfish and you put it together with the tuna. Mutter. You're allowed to eat the tuna. But what's the problem? What happened to the tzir? The juices of the catfish penetrated into the tuna. And you see that it's okay. My lav show you shnei meluchim. And you see that it doesn't absorb the juices. You're allowed to eat it. Says Gemara, it's not a raya. Lo, you can show you tar maliach v'tamei tafel. It doesn't say that you salted both. It says tar shemalcha. If you look closely at the words, the kosher tuna you salted, shemal chai, it. It doesn't say shemal cham, plural. You salted one. So you salted one out of the two, but it doesn't absorb. There's nothing coming out of it. It's not pilot. Even though there's some, it's a nice chiddush to me. Treif touching kosher, and this one has a lot of salt on it. You think it's absorbing, and there's something coming out of this dead fish. Well, nothing. You never saw a fish like it has a little moisture coming out? No, it's okay. So this is the classic Gemara. It's like a freebie almost. Throughout Shas, we have it so many times. So the Gemara, like, tar melia. Excuse me. Like, tar melia v'tami tafel. As the Gemara of Amidik Tani Seifa. Well, you can't answer that because the next case in this brisa is exactly this case. Right? If the second case in the brisa is this case that you only salted one, and you didn't salt the tummy one, so you can't tell me that the first case is the same case. Why would I repeat the same case twice? It must be that the first case is talking about both of them are assaulted. Says the Gemara, interesting answer. It's one of the classic answers also. No, there is no second case. The second case is just the taich, the explanation of the first case. Tar shemalcha im dag tamei mutar. Keitzad, what's the case? Shoyin tar melia v'tamei tavel. Only one of them is salted. And you know what? It's not just the doichak teretz. It's actually the real pshat because achanam mistabra. There's no other way to really learn it. Says the Gemara. If the reisha is talking about the extreme case, where both of them are salted, nevertheless, we're not concerned about the tray fish in that bucket. You're allowed to eat the kosher fish, even though both of them are salted. I have to tell you a second case in the brisa. If you start out slow and you told me a case that one of them is salted, one of them wasn't, and then you add another case that even if both of them are salted, you're allowed to eat it, great. But you're starting off with the most extreme case. Both the fish are salted, the tummy is also salted, and then you tell me a lesser case, it makes no sense. Says Gemara, okay, that's not a great raya. That's not the perfect raya. Sometimes I do say something that's not as a big chiddush at the end to explain the beginning. To tell us the big chiddush. I tell you the big chiddush in the beginning, but I only know the big chiddush through the second case. Like, hey, don't tell me, doesn't say before how many you salted. So I'm telling you that don't tell me that the beginning is talking about a case where only one is salted, the other one isn't. But if both of them are salted, that can be aser because one absorbs from the other. Okay, I know what you're thinking. You could have just said it easier by explaining it a little bit more, but that's the derech hatana. It tells me a case of only one salted, so I know that the beginning is talking about both salted. And that's the massive chiddush that even though both fish, the kosher and the non-kosher, are both salted, and you think that they absorb one from the other, you're allowed to eat them. Tashmam is safer than safer, but there's a third case. This is the opposite case. that only one of the two fish was salted, but which one? The tummy one was salted. Also, then you're not allowed to eat it. So you could be medayik, tummy, meliach v'tar, tafel, hudas, or shnei meluchim. But if both were salted, shari. No, you can't make that deal. Why? I did tar reish tar meliach v'tar tafel. I'm just mimicking the lashon of the reish. The reish talks about one fish that's salted. Which one is salted? The tar. Now you say tummy, meliach v'tar, tafel. One of them is salted. The gets a no deal. New sugya, Rabbi say new sugya. Yeah? This is the manach nafkusa, that's the simon over here. Omar Shmuel. Eina basa yoitzim de damai, elam came molcha yafa yafa, uwedicha yafa yafa. Oh. It's super interesting. Lashon to me, the basar doesn't come out of the blood. Instead of the blood doesn't come out of the basar. Okay. The basar, eina basa yoitzim de damai, the meat does not come out of the blood. In other words, you can't get the blood out. Elohim came molcha yafa yafa. What does molcha yafa yafa mean? You have to salt it very, very nicely. In other words, every surface area should have salt on it. Umedicha yafa yafa. And after you're done, you must rinse it off very, very well. In other words, the salt that's on the meat absorbs. What does it absorb? Blood. So you can't have that salt on the meat. If you sell it, it's gonna have blood on it. So you gotta get rid of all the salt. Itmar. Ravuna Amar. So Ravuna says you salt and then you rinse. You rinse, salt, rinse. Nobody argues here. Everybody agrees they have to do 3 steps. Rinse, salt, rinse. Say a lot of people are new to this, right? They didn't really go to the shlachtos. They don't know how it works over there. So we're opening up people's eyes to how it is. There are machines like this. Everything's automated. I think the salting part is not automated. That people put the salt on, but the rest, how much time it sits in the machine, it has to everything. Every step has there's a timer, and then it moves on. V'chulu. Itmar. There's no machlokes. The question is, if the butcher initially, or the shaychet, the first person involved, did he rinse off the animal? Think about it for a second. If you have one of those popcorn poppers, no salt poppers, right? No oil air popper. Try to put salt on that, right? It doesn't really stick. But you give it a geschmack spritz with oil, sticks. They say that's why do you have to do the first hadacha? Either the pshat is that there's a lot of blood on it, so you got to get rid of before you throw a bunch of salt. It's like putting salt on a pile of snow. It's not going to work. First you get rid of the snow, then you put the salt down on the bottom, close to the sidewalk, so that whatever is left over there, it's not, you're from South Africa, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, if you have a ton of blood, what are you throwing salt on it? It's not going to do the job. Get rid of the blood, then put the salt, and then it will absorb more blood from within the animal. Another thing is that you need the salt to adhere to it, to stick to it, like salt on popcorn. Sorry, something stuck over there. You know, what do they call it in America or around the world? Kosher salt. Why is it called kosher salt? Even a guy calls it kosher salt. Why? Because it's used for kashering. It's milcha, I think, throwing it out there. Milcha golanisa, it's the coarse, thick salt. Umenapetzle, and then he would just shake it off. Because they're thick, so you can just shake it off. You take the piece and you shake it off. It's also interesting lashon. Ein machzikin dam b'vnei ma'ayim. The intestines don't contain any blood. I'm going to show you a video. There's no blood. Did you know that if you open up, take a knife to the intestines, you give it a nice cut, no blood will come out. Other interesting stuff might come out in the intestines, but not blood. If you cut other organs, like you cut the lung, blood will pop out of the lung. Real blood. Real blood. Not the fake stuff. What's the bnei? Here we have it. Look, we had at the beginning of the Masechta, Karkasha is the rectum, it's all the way at the end, right before the waist goes out. Hadra de Kanto, there's like fat on it, and the ma'ayim. So take a look at this for a second. It's a little gross. If you're sensitive to this stuff. Kanto. He's cutting it and no blood comes out. There's no blood there. That's a lung. This is a Vrum Weissfish, of course. So, what's the point? The point is that if you're going to eat that fat on the Hadar de Kanta, you don't have to salt it. There's nothing to salt. There's no blood over there. But if you're going to eat a lung, you have to salt the lung. The vessel must have holes in it so that the blood, after it comes out, it has where to drain. Rav Sheshes Malachle Garmo Garmo. The Gemara is going to say this is not accurate, but he would salt one piece at a time. He wouldn't let the pieces touch each other. He was concerned what? That the blood is going to come out of one and go into the other. So you take one garma means a bone, one piece with a bone in it, I guess, one piece at a time. That's what they do today, small pieces at a time for the animal, not for a chicken. My time Eloi, why not two? Because the blood comes out of one, goes into the other. That's the Gemara. Wait a minute. You have a nice piece of meat, this big, 200 pounds. There's a right and a left. The blood comes out of the right side, goes to the left. I mean, why are two pieces? If you cut it in half and you put it one on top of the other, no, that's not good. If it's one piece, you didn't cut it yet, and it's one giant piece, that's okay. What happened to the blood that comes out of one side is going to drip into the other side? Ela loishna. There is no difference. And then we have to go back to Taisus. Why is there no difference? Why is it okay? Because yes, it finished expelling the blood, but it continues to expel the juices. And as long as it's expelling juices, and that takes a very long time, hours, it doesn't have the opportunity to absorb blood. And maybe it's okay. I don't know about it in America. I've never seen it in America. Over here, it's very common when you buy a piece of meat, it says on the label, contains 20% water. And they tell you, Amaisa, that it's better to freeze like that. What if you do something similar with blood? You fill the animal with blood. You give him a nice piece of steak that's full of blood. You're selling him bogus weight. So the great trick how to do it. Right after you shech the animal, you break its neck. And the blood stops flowing to the rest of the animal. We want the shechita to be open, and we want him to struggle and make noises and pushes all the blood out. A lot of blood. The more blood comes out, less blood inside the animal. But hashoivim afrakta shel behema, if you crack its neck, it's here, this part right over here. Yeah, that part that when people, the vertebrae, when people are in car accidents, they go and they're very careful with it. So, koidim sheteitze nafsha. In other words, you shecht it, and right, it's still like being geises. Hareizem machbez habasar. You're adding weight to the meat. The geizels habrios, you're stealing from people because they aren't aware that it has extra blood in it. They're paying per pound, and you're stealing. You would be stealing, obviously, if you injected meat with water and you wouldn't tell them. That's also stealing. Iboilu. So the Gemara just asks the question, remains in a teiku. What's the point here? Am I telling you that it's gneva? Or I'm also trying to tell you that you shouldn't eat this meat, that you yourself have a problem eating it because there's too much blood in it. Yeah, because you're allowed to eat blood that's stuck in the organs. That you're allowed to do. But if it's extra, that's a problem, maybe. Why? Because there's a few extra words here. It says, umavliya dam be'varim. 3 extra words. You absorb blood in the organs. Why am I telling you this? Maybe I'm telling it to you to explain the reason why it's gneva, because you just added extra liquid into the organs. Holiday day, but the owner, the ganav, shapir dami, but he's stealing the briois, but holiday day shapir dami, he could eat it. It's a good hechsher. Or maybe the Bryce is telling us, no, since it has so much extra blood, that kind of blood is not considered dama muvla be'ivarim, that's usually mutter. That's extra, and that's aser. Teiku. Hamalas ha'oifim agvino ala shulchan. The reason it's not so accurate because it happens right after the shechita. But okay. So this is a sugi that we discussed already. Is chicken aser to eat midiraisa with milk? Hamalas ha'oifim agvino. You have a table with chicken and milk ala shulchan. Einay over beloisas. You're not over in an issa deraisa. Says Gemara. Only because you put it on the table, you're not over. What if you eat it? You're also not over, no? So you're telling me that eating chicken with milk is a deraisa. No, the pshat is what the Mishnah is trying to tell me is that you'll never, even if you try hard, and even if you eat it afterwards, even if a person by mistake eats the two, it wouldn't be over in a deraisa. Says the Mishnah, Basar behema tahira, b'chalev behema tahira. The isser of, so we know, there's 3 psukim, l'savashil, gdi, b'chalev imay. What do we learn from the 3 psukim? Rabboisai, the isser to eat it, the isser to cook it, and the isser to have no from it, have any benefit from it. So this applies to kosher meat, basar behema tahira, b'chalev behema tahira, with kosher milk. Also, l'vashil, b'asabah, you're not allowed to, it's unbelievable. To cook, just to cook it, just to cook. You hear this? You're not doing anything, you're just cooking for fun. But if the meat is tummy animal with milk of a kosher animal, mutter levashel, mutter ba'ana, then it's mutter. So we saw, if it's behemoth tmeya, it's the wrong hechsher. Stam. Mutter levashel, mutter ba'ana. Then it's a mutter. The answer to do bishul of basar b'chalav, it doesn't apply to a deer and to chicken. It says it 3 times. So what does Rabbi Akiva learn? Here we go. All 3 are right here. 1 is prat l'chaya ula'if, only a goat, which is a behema, but not to a chaya, like a deer, and a bird. Prat l'chaya ula'if. Here the second one is a bird, and the third one ubehema tmeya, and let's say something like a horse. Rabbi Isaac li yomer lo yisoch l'kol nevela. Ve'nem lo yisavash gli b'chalev imoy. Esra also, there's a connection between the vela and basar b'chalav. Esra also mishum nevela so levash b'chalav. Since a chaya has the isur nevela, it's also to cook it together with the milk. Maybe let's apply the same halacha to a bird. This comes to exclude a bird that doesn't have milk. This is maybe the only thing that Rabbi Yedidia, my Rebbe, makes fun of me, because when we were learning this sugya 7.5 years ago, I by mistake said that a chicken is nursing or something crazy, something that I wasn't mamish thinking at the time. Like I asked the kasha, like, what if the chicken is pregnant? Something meshuga. So he always goes back and says, sometimes like the Gemara is not. It's like it's not practical. It's not. It's like what?
It's abstract.
It's abstract. Chicken nursing, zachin. Okay. But a chicken is not a mother. It doesn't have milk. So in Mela, it's not in the Isser of basar b'chalav. But not immediately, how do we know that a gdi, it says gdi 3 times, so maybe the Torah is very serious about being a goat. Maybe it should only, we take it for granted, but how do you know? Maybe it's only a goat that you can't cook with its mother's milk. It says gdi 3 times, the Torah is very stark about it. How do you know it means a cow and a sheep? It says by Yehuda, the goat of the goats, ha'izim. Kan gedizim only by Yehuda. Hakol makom shenemar gedi stam afilu para v'rochel b'mashma. But anywhere else in the Torah it says the word gedi, it means also all behemoths, like a cow and a sheep. As the Gemara, why don't we just learn from Yehuda, that it means only a goat. Ksiv, Kra'achrina, there's another pasuk, where does it say this pasuk? By Yaakov Avinu, that he came in for the brachas, so his mother dressed him with Esav's clothing. And it says, V'soyres G'diyoy Yizim, V'leilav Minei, V'soyres G'diyoy Yizim, Kan G'diyoy Yizim, Hokol Mokoim, ask the Gemara, so we have a second pasuk. Rabbi Isa, here's the classic. We have two psukim that say the same thing, that G'diyoy Yizim, by Yaakov Avinu also it says G'diyoy Yizim. That it's only, a G'di means goats. Hokol Mokoim Shenem G'di Stam, sorry. V'leilav Minei, Ksim Kurachin is another pasuk. It's always G'day Yizim, Kan G'day Yizim, only by Yaakov Avinu. It's G'day Yizim. Okal Makom Shenemar G'day Stam. Afilu Par V'Roch Mashma means also other types of behemoths. Says the Gemara V'Leilav B'nei. So why didn't we learn from Yaakov Avinu that it means just the goat? Havelu Shnei Ksuma Boim Kecha. We have G'day Yizim, G'day Yizim. It's two psukim. V'Chol Shnei Ksuma Boim Kecha. Ein Melamdim. What's the logic? If the Torah says something once, then you can learn to the rest of the Torah that's called what? Binyanav. But if the Torah says it twice, the Torah is telling you only in these two places, nowhere else. But there's a mandama that says you could learn from two psukim. It says, izim, ha'izim, it says the word ha'izim, like we see over here, the extra hay comes to be made. Only in these two places is it goats, but other places it means sheep and camp and huh? No way. I don't say something like this. Amar Shmuel, Gedi leRabbis is a chaylev, not zoicha. That's a good pshat. Amar Shmuel, Gedi leRabbis is a chaylev. Check this out. Very, very simple. It's going to make the whole sugya super easy. Let me see. Okay, I missed all these. I'm sorry, Yoshi. Here, we have 3 gdis and we have 3 purple bachalev. What do we do with the first one? L'Rabbi's chaylev, that you cannot cook with fat, milk and fat. The second one is that a dead animal also is considered basar b'chalav. And the third one is that a baby, a ben pakua baby, also you can't cook with milk. But not blood. Blood and milk is asur, but not because of basar b'chalav, just because it's blood and milk. And shilya means the placenta, it's just a bag. That's not a problem with basar b'chalav. And lo'itzi tmeya, that as we learned, that a tamei animal is not included in this basar b'chalav. Let's see it inside. Gdila Rabbi says chaylev, Gdila Rabbi says tamei, Gdila Rabbi says shalal. I said inside on the chart. Gdila ha'itzi sadam, Gdila ha'itzi says shilya, Gdila ha'itzi says tmeya. Now, b'chalev imay, the purple, b'chalev imay v'loy b'chalev zachar. A male animal has milk. There's one in the Medrash Rabbah. I'm going to tell you where to find it. Bereshis Rabbah, in Parshas Noach, Parsha Lamed, Ois Tes, it says that Mordechai Tzaddik, when he's taking care of the baby Esther, he's looking around for somebody to nurse the baby, and he couldn't find. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a nest that he had milk. So everybody started laughing. Namoyer was saying this over in Shul, and everybody started laughing. So he said, "What are you laughing?" It's a Gemara in Chullin. V'loy b'chalev zachar. And a famous story that's a man lost his wife. Yeah.
Shabbos?
I'll call upon him. V'loy b'chalev zachar. Male milk doesn't count. I looked it up then. Google said yes, there is such a thing. B'chalev imoy. Men could have milk. B'chalev imoy v'loy b'chalev shchuta. Oh, so this is something that we learned before, that if you shecht an animal and the milk comes out after its death, then it's not basar b'chalav d'oraisa. B'chalev imoy v'loy b'chalev tmeya. Here we go. These are the 3 on the bottom. Okay, so from the word gdi, we learned 6 things, and from the word b'chalev, we learned in the purple, we just learned 3 more things. Now, zachar, shchuta, tmeya. So the Gemara asks, if we just get rid of these now, we have 6 things that we just learned from 3 words. How does it make sense? How do you learn 6 things from 3 words? It only says gdi 3 times. And actually the darshinon says it's another sugi we learned in this mesachta. You could apply one isser on top of another isser. We said it's a chaylev, it's a moisef. Not going to go into it. The fact that there's chaylev in the animal, chaylev, there's no reason for it to go away. An animal has chaylev, you're not allowed to eat chaylev, you're not allowed to eat the fat. And the fact that you added bas b'cholov to it is not a problem. You added another issa to it. But so Mela, let's do this. Rabbi, take a look at the chart for a second. Mesa and Chalev, you can learn from one Gedi. I don't need a second one because it's Isser Chalal Isser. Dam Nami, Lav Gediu. What's the Havamina that you can't cook milk together with blood? Blood is not a goat. Blood is blood. It's not part of a goat. It's not meat of a goat. So let's get rid of there. Let's take away number 4. Getting rid of number 4. Vishili Nami and the sack around the animal, Pirshbalmo. It's just, it's not meat. It's like just a paper bag. So we got to get rid of Shilia. Here we go. Number 5 goes bye-bye. So here, we're left with 3. Perfect. Yeah, but we did one already. Number 1, L'Ravis Chayla, L'Ravis Mesa, we used that one Gedi. Now we have 2 left. Take a look. We go like this. Number 6 and number 3. So now we put them over there. Okay, so that Pashlu Trey, Chalav Shlil, Chalamuti Behema Tmeya, Rabboisai. Have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDY.com.